So I've been gone for about a month, and that's not entirely because I didn't have anything to make videos on. It is kind of partially that, I'm not gonna lie. I have been a little bit devoid of anything particularly creative, but some of that has to do with, the impending civil war, and the rest of it has to do with the fact that I've actually been putting a lot of effort into sort of a utilities package that I can attach to any one of my projects. And the reason why is I basically tend to do this in every language, have like a library of functions that I can refer back to, things that might not already exist in the language, but are sort of generically useful, right? And so today I'm just kind of gonna go over some of those and show them to you, hopefully in a way that makes them sort of interesting. They're not all that interesting, but I'll just try to, I'll just show them off one by one. Some of them definitely have some really cool uses, and some of them are a little bit more simple. So in a lot of cases, the things that I have are procedure functions. Almost everything is a procedure function. I think there's like 2 task functions, and I have a couple of commands as well that we'll be going over. But broadly speaking, most of them are procedures, which means they effectively parse like tags. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is all very specific to Denizen stuff, and I would suggest checking out the guide. But broadly speaking, think of it kind of like a function that returns a value but can't change anything. Like it couldn't change block states or it couldn't send messages, right? It literally just does something and gives you a value back, right? And so in this case, I would type in the name of the procedure function, which in our first one is has alpha, and then I would type something like I am a test string 1 2 3 ABC, and then we'll do some characters as well. And in this case, basically all it does is return true if that string has alphabetic characters in it, right? Which you can see right here. Whoops, you can see right here, true, which is the result of I am a test string, because the letter I or the letter AM are all alphabetical. So like I mentioned, they're not all super interesting, but this is very useful because even though if you wanted to do that in your own code, it would only take like a couple lines, maybe even like one tag with a couple like subtags or something. It wouldn't be anything particularly complicated, but being able to stick it into a procedure script means I don't have to remember like the exact way I go about determining whether a string has alphabetic characters in it. I can literally just type procedure has alpha, or in this case I could do procedure has numeric, which is true because it has the numbers 1 2 3, and then I also have alpha numeric. So alpha numeric, right? Which is basically just seeing if it has any letters or numbers in it. So if I were to pass a string like just this, right? There's no alphabetic characters here or numeric characters, so it should give me false. Fuck! So as you can see, when I run it, it gives me false because there are no alphabetic characters or numeric characters. Simple. The next set of procedure scripts I have is alpha, is numeric, and in this case, what it's saying is, here, let's get our test string back, right? I am a test string 1 2 3 ABC, right? And if I say is alpha, it is actually going to return false, because there are alphabetic characters, but there's also numbers and symbols, right? And so is alpha is basically saying, is this only alphabetic characters? I can also do is numeric, and I could also do is alphanumeric, right? The next one we have is one that I actually really like. It's as alpha, and what it does is it basically trims a string to only alphabetic characters, right? So you want something that can only be alphabetic characters. Maybe you are parsing through something and you want to get rid of all the punctuation, right? You'll see it gives us I am a test string ABC with no spaces, none of the numbers, none of the symbols. And we also have that same thing for numbers, so that gives us just the numbers that's in there. And then we could also do as alpha numeric, which gives us alphanumeric. Due to the way that this one works, the previous ones, such as has alpha or is alpha, we could, if we wanted to do the inverse, we could just say is alpha dot not, right? And because since this is actually returning a value and not just a true or false, we can't just invert that, right? We actually would have to do some different logic to it. And so in this case, I also have as non-alpha, non-numeric, non-alpha numeric. The next one that we have is has, has valid ending punctuation. So if we were to run has valid ending punctuation with hello, it would say false, because obviously in the English language, ending it without any punctuation whatsoever is not technically correct, right? It's you're just you don't have any punctuation. If we were to do something like an exclamation point, it would be true. If we were to do a period, it would be true. It's not perfect. If we were to do just that, it would also give us true. It doesn't check to see that there's an opening bracket, right? It just is like doing a real basic check. It's checking to see if the last character is one of a number of things that something could theoretically end in, right? So this would return true, right? Because technically this is fine, right? That doesn't need a period, it's a number. So it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but yeah, so has valid ending punctuation. I've used it in one particular instance and it's okay. Here's one that's really nice, which is, this comes up a lot, I think. First letter uppercase. There's already a tag that uppercases all the letters, but nothing that uppercases just the first letter. So if we were to pass hello, now we've got capital H hello, right? We've also got is lowercase, which just tells you if all the characters are lowercase, and also is uppercase. The next one that we have is probably one of my most used procedure functions. It's probably something I add in every library, like before anything else, and it's the map function. So, roughly speaking, the map function, or map range in this case, right, to not confuse it with the data type map, which exists in Denizen, takes a input range. So say I had a number between 4 and 8, and an output range. I wanted to map it between 0 and 1, and then I pass in a number, right? And so the idea is, for whatever reason, you have a number that could be between 4 and 8, right? But that's not easy to do math with. You say you're trying to figure out if it's halfway between 4 and 8, right? An easier way to do that might be if you just mapped it between 0 and 1, right? So you could turn it into like a percentage, right? So then you would pass in whatever your value is. In this case, we'll say 6. And we know that 6 is between 4 and 8. So we're going to get out 0.5. And so the idea is, this is really easy, obviously, if you have something like some really small numbers right here. Really easily to conceptualize inputs and super easy to conceptualize outputs, right? That happens. But maybe you have something really jank. 123 to 188, but you actually need it to go from 180 to 360, right? Maybe something to do with circles or colors. Whoops. Now, you could try to do some math that like takes the original 123 to 188, and then like you subtract it by 123, and then you add a number, and then you sort of stretch out the value, and you could do that. And you could do that technically to any of these equations, right? But this is a helper function. It just abstracts all that away. You don't have to do that, and you can just say map one range to another range and give me an answer. So I would say if I put in 150, it gives me out 254, and now I don't have to worry about it, right? So the next one I have is called cycle value. value. And the idea is that you take a range, so something like 50 to 100, and you would pass in, you know, whatever your input is. And in this case, if I were to pass in 75, it's between 50 and 100, so it's just gonna give me 75 back, right? But if I were to pass in 101, right, we hit 100, and now we've wrapped back around to 50. And so the idea is you could put in 4,360 blah 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 blah, right? And now I've get out 99, right? So the next one we have is a Denizen function specifically, like a Denizen procedure function. So like I mentioned before, procedure functions can't they can't change external states, right? They can't change the world in any way. I can't send a message to you know, the chat. I can't send a message to the chat. I can't affect players. I can't spawn in stuff. But I can create an item within Denizen and return that, and then spawn that later. Or I can, for example, create a color tag. I might not be able to change the color of an animal specifically, or a block specifically, but I can return a color tag that can then be used by something else. And so the first one I have is random color. If I remember correctly, this one doesn't take context and gives you a random color. And it actually gives a random color with a certain saturation and value capped, I believe, so you can't go below that. And so the best way to see this would be, I believe, some text. Can I do? There we go. And so every time I run this, we're gonna just get a different color value. And our text is just gonna be something different. You'll notice it's never really getting super white or super black, and that's because, like I mentioned before, that saturation and hue is capped. Because before I didn't have those capped, I just was like, give me a random color with whatever you want. And then the colors would always turn out basically some shade of gray. So I find that this is the one where it's like, you can still get some pretty light looking colors, but also their actual color and not just like a shade of gray. So that one's fun. Next one that we have is rainbow color, or rainbow text, I believe. And this one's pretty cool. 1.16, I believe, added in the ability to do rainbows in your text. And there actually is a tag in Denizen that returns rainbow text, but it uses the old coloring system. And so the increments between the color is fine, I guess. It's just the old, you know, rainbow system. And I wanted something a little bit more, you know? And so in this case, we pass in our text, right? And so in this case, we would do something like, hello, like that. And then we could pass in, if we want to, the next two are optional. We can pass in a starting color, right? So if I wanted it to start at red, I could say color red, and an increment, right? The amount that the color changes between. So if I did something crazy like 100, it'll throw an error. If I were to do something crazy like 100, then you'll notice the difference between each letter is really dramatic. Like almost to the point that it doesn't even really look rainbow, right? But as you can see, we started at red, which is because we passed in red, and then it, you know, it's increasing by 100 hue each time. But if we wanted a more subtle change, we could do 1, which you can barely even tell it's changing. I like 15. 15's a pretty good, like, number. I think you can tell it's still like rainbow, but it's not so dramatic. You know, you're really getting to see the graduation between the colors. 25 is good if you have like a really short bit of text, right? I might do 25 if I had short text. And then the cool thing is you actually don't need to pass in an increment or a starting color. So if we were to pass it, if we were to run it just like this, it's just gonna, It's just going to start us with red. It'll always start with red, and it's going to do an increment of 15, right? And so, you know, if you're cool with that, then, you know, if you just want rainbow text, boom, there you go. Or you could take that and you could take the one that we had previously, right? proc random color and mix the two together, and that's probably one of my favorites, right? And they work well together because of the way that the rainbow text works, where it's only changing the hue, which means if you have sort of a pale color like this, every color after is also pale. Or if you have a darker one like this one, right? Or if it's really saturated, right? Every color follows that same saturation and value. So it looks really well put together, I think. So the next one that we have is Cycle Rainbow Text. So Cycle Rainbow Text is pretty cool. The way Cycle Rainbow Text works is similar to the previous one. It's going to return a result giving you rainbow text for your, for your phrase. But it's actually going to give you multiple copies of the thing that you put in, right? So in this case, we have hey everyone. It'll give us multiple hey everyones with a slightly adjusted set of colors each time. So in this case, we're gonna do just 3 instances of it, and we are going to have an increment of 15, and we're going to have a random color, and if you press enter, this is going to be a little bit hard to see, but hopefully you'll notice when we start on hey everyone, right, this one, it starts sort of a blue color and goes to purple, and then it's blue to sort of a pink, and now it's like purple to pink, and now it's like pink to red, and the idea is that the color itself is shifting over to the left for each element, right? And so we would get this list, and what we would do is we'd loop over the list, and we would maybe put it into a tool, for example. So, for example, you can see how it's sort of flashing location right there. That's an actual usage of the procedure tag, and I'll explain what that tool is later. But that's sort of something you would be able to do with Cycle Rainbow Text. So the next one's another random generation, but this one is random pitch. And what you're doing with random pitch basically is it is returning a value that you can then pass into the pitch portion of play effect, or play sound rather. Play sound takes a pitch, and the problem is the range of pitches is like really weirdly small. It's between like 1.1 to negative to 0.9 roughly, right? That's about where the pitch is. And so like you can just take that range and use it, and that's fine. But if you just pick a random number between those ranges, you'll get a lot of high pitch sounds and a lot of low pitch sounds. So what random pitch is doing is it is actually giving you sort of a Gaussian distribution of random numbers, which means things are gonna mostly hover around 1, and they're just gonna kind of slightly veer to the left or the right. And so the idea is that, here, do I know a sound off the top of my head? I looked it up. It was very close, block anvil use. So now we should be able to, so we're gonna run the play sound command. We're gonna do the block anvil use sound, which is just like hitting an anvil, on us, but we're going to use random pitch. And when we run it, so as you can see, it's pretty much close to how Minecraft, not for all of their sounds, but for some of their sounds, they randomly pick a pitch, right? And it's basically kind of doing the same thing. There really isn't a random pitch tag in Denizen, but I am basically just using, the already existing Gaussian distribution, and just, I think I set like a range of like 0.75 to 1.25. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't even remember, which is why it's in a procedure function. I don't have to remember now. I can just put random pitch, and it just gives me one, and I know it'll be, a random pitch that sounds good, that isn't like absurdly high or anything silly like that. Alright, so our next one is a bit weird. It's basically called Make Numeric List, And there is actually a tag in Denizen that allows you to create a list, but it only allows you to create a list from 0 to something, or 1 to something, I think, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head. But make numeric list allows you to create a numeric list from any number to any other number. You basically just define where you're starting. So we could say, I want to start at 30, negative 30, and I want the list to be a size of 100, right? And you can see it starts at negative 30 and then counts up 100 units, and then now we're at 70. So the next one we have is called Farthest from 0. And the way that Farthest from 0 works is you actually pass in a list. And in this case, anytime you pass in a list to, what is this called? A procedure script. You actually want to, if you want it to be a single argument, you pass in list single. Otherwise, I would just get 100 separate arguments, which is not useful to anybody. So we do list single, and then we would do something like, see, here's our list, right? We have 5 to 32 to 20, 17, 0, negative 40, negative 66, and it gives us 7, which was not even in our list. Oh shit, that's right. It gives us the index of the value. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, so basically all it's doing is going through the list, and it's getting the absolute value of that number, and it's finding the biggest one, right? And so in this case, that would be this one, right? Which is, if we count, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th entry in the list, right? And or 7. I mean, 7th entry in the list. Another one we have is Normalize, and Normalize basically takes a list. Whoops, I shouldn't have pressed enter. Normalize takes a list, and it basically squashes everything down by the, again, absolute farthest from 0 number, right? Which in this case is negative 66. And it makes that the negative 1, right? It makes, that's the 1 unit, and everything else is relative to that, right? So negative 66 is negative 1, 0 is 0, 5 is 0.0757575 repeating, so on and so forth. The next one is a pretty simple one. It's just called clamp. You pass in a minimum value and a maximum value, and then pass in your input, right? And basically, if it's above the maximum, it gets shrunk down to what the maximum is, and if it was below the minimum, then it gets nothing. Nothing happens. What? Oh, wait a second. Just dawned on me. The input is first, and it shouldn't be. That's the problem. That was so funny. I didn't notice, but for whatever reason, I put input first, and then min, then max. Normally, input's the last value. I don't know. Anyways, that was bizarre. But as we press enter... Oh, hold on. But we can press enter, and as you see, because 38 is less than 40, it just becomes 40. And then same thing. If it was over 60, it would become 60. And if it's between the two, then it just stays that. So here's one, an interesting one. This one is called fill list, right? And what it does is you pass in a procedure script. You pass in the name of a procedure script, right? So in this case, we could do something like random color. It has to be something that doesn't take a context, which random color doesn't. I'm like thinking about them. Does it take context? It doesn't, right? So random color, and then to say how long the list we want it to be. We want it to be 5 long. Press enter, and now we have 5 different random colors. So just an easy way, instead of having to for each through each one, throw it into a list, blah 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 blah. This just does all of that for you. Psh, easy peasy. Here's a fun one. So if you've ever done any math in Denizen, you might know that it is a little bit wordy. So 4 dot add 5 dot multiply 5, and then I want to take this whole thing as another element so that I can divide it all by 2. And that's a little visually busy, I would say, right? So now we get the 22.5. And so I was just kind of bored one day and I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if you could just parse a mathematical expression? And so that's what this does. It's a little finicky, but basically you pass in values and separate them all by spaces. Or no spaces? Hold on. Yes, they have to be separated by spaces. I think I had the choice of make sure they are separated by spaces or make sure they're not separated by spaces. And when they weren't separated by spaces, it started to look ugly again. So I was like, well, fuck it. We'll just make them all space separated. But we could pass in that same expression we just did before, right? Which was 4 plus 5 times 5. Also, because of how Denizen works, that actually was 4 plus 5, like this, times 5, right? Because it reads left to right, and it doesn't follow order of operations, right? So that actually would have been 4 plus 5 times 5. We take all of this and divide it by 2. Oh, and just because there's spaces, you gotta put quotes around it. And it gives us a different value, which is annoying. 4 plus 5 times 5 should be 9 times 45. So 9 times 5, 45, divided by 2 is, I don't know what happened. Why did it do that? I spent so much time on this, and it just fucking fell apart for no reason. Here's my expression. Zoom right on past my... Also, it's not a very performant procedure script. That's a fun one. So, it's basically useless in every possible way. What the fuck happened? 4 plus 5. What? What the fucking Christ is this? Bro! Who's messing with my code? I must have Control F replace all something a while ago and didn't notice. Yo! That's so dumb. This is supposed to be N1. That's hilarious. I don't remember doing that at all. So it's just arbitrarily multiplying or adding everything by 7 point some random number. Oh, you know what? That was for the easing functions. That's so funny. Alright, so here's how it was supposed to work. Boom. What? Oh, it's not N1 though. It's just N, isn't it? Motherfucker. Why did I call this one N and this one N2? Why didn't I just do N1 and N2? I'm so dumb. You know what? No, I'm gonna change it now that I'm thinking about it. This should be N1. Not N. You make it N1. Jesus. That's so fucking funny. Anyways, hey, so yeah, procedure function. It runs and works. Look at that. It gave me the result that I wanted and follows order of operations. So, the next one is single cube bounding box. The single cube bounding box, if I remember correctly, you pass in a location and it just gives us the bounding box of that particular location, which is used for a very specific mechanism called bounding box. So I'm not even really sure that it works, but it's there. Alright, so the next one is pretty simple. Well, I guess it's simple if you took trig, I think. It's Sine Wave. And it's literally just taking the sine function and giving you some parameters to fuck around with it specifically, right? So I can input a value, right? So in this case, if I were to input 0, we'll say 0.25, and an offset, right? So the wave goes up and down, but we can slide that wave to the left or the right, right? So we can define where it starts. So say we wanted it to start at 1. Amplitude how high the wave goes, right? So we could do 4, right? Which makes it go like 4 times higher than usual. And frequency, how fast it's going, right? So we could say 3 times as fast. And then press enter, and there we go. So I actually made a quick script just so that it was more clear what the sine wave function did, because like I mentioned before, it just basically gave you a number, which meant nothing to a lot of people, I'm sure. So I have a task right here called run YouTube task. And what it does, it'll spawn in a block and then just move it with that sine wave. And so what it's doing is it is basically moving with the sine wave. I'm just passing in the value I got from the sine wave into the block. And changing its position, right? So the next one is called Proc Sine Wave Increment, and the reason why this exists is there are some mechanisms and things like that, like I think the rotate mechanism. I don't remember. It just for whatever reason says rotate takes an increment. I don't know what I did there. But basically what you're doing is you are passing in a value, right? And it does take radians technically. So when I did the value before, a 1, 2, 3, 4, that's like half a loop each time, which is why it was moving so fast. So if I wanted it to be slower, I would probably do like, 1, 2 radians. Oops. How do you do that? That's 1. And I would just convert whatever my value was to radians, right? Like that. And then that makes it less likely to, it's assuming that this 1 is a degree, right? And then it's turning it into radians. So it's 1 degree as radians instead of just 1 radian, which is, like I mentioned before, like almost half a rotation or something. But in between this and all the other previous parameters we have before, we also pass in increment, which I believe we're passing in, if I remember correctly, the amount that the number before is increasing, right? So in this case, it's increasing by 1 every time, right? But we're converting it to radians. So we would just put this here, right? So the first loop, this one would be 1, and this stays this, and then the second loop, this goes to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, but this stays the same because each loop we're technically only going up by 1, whatever that is in radians, 0.035, blah, 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 blah. And the idea is it's basically getting the difference between the two different values and giving me the difference between the previous time you ran it and the next time, right? The next one is the ease script. Now I'm actually going to be looking at it here for a second because I want to show you guys something. Ease script takes an ease type, direction, input, as well as an optional speed, range, min, and range max. The speed goes from 0 to 1, 0 not moving at all, 1 max speed, like full speed basically. And range min and range max is a range in which you want the result to be mapped to, right? So it's basically like taking the ease function and literally mapping range, right? If no range is passed, then the output value that you'll get back will go from 0 to 1. When the ease has reached its maximum value, it'll return false. So that's how you know it's done. It'll start at 0, go up to 1, and then once it's returned 1, it'll be like, we're done. And it'll return false, and you'll know it's done. But this isn't a lot, right? This is a very small bit of code for what I just described. And the reason why is I actually have something called core. Here's where I'm hiding that YouTube task. Core is basically, utilities is like the front-facing part of the library. If somebody wanted to use my library, they'd go into utilities, read what it does, read the definitions, and pass that stuff in, and that's it. But there are times where I need to basically do work for the work that they're gonna do, right? Really ugly stuff like a bunch of events and things like that I don't want to have all of that over here in the utilities because it's not relevant, I guess. I don't know how to describe that. But basically, it's like my library has another library. But this stuff is specifically only for the utilities. And so the easing functions I have all down here. So this is some very like specific math for the easing functions. And then I have the sine easing function, quad, cubic, quart, quint, right? And so I would pass in sine in or sine out or sine in out, and then all the other stuff, right? And so the way that this would work, if I wanted to actually run it, is, and I'm going to use that task I had before and just change this procedure. Whoops. Just so we can get a feel for how it's going to work, right? And I'm going to pass in, instead of sine, well, still sine wave, but actually ease in this case. It's going to be ease sine in, right? The input, just like before, is value. And this time we're actually going to convert it to radians because it's supposed to be. Actually, I don't know that this one does take radians. It doesn't say anything that it does. So actually, we might just be able to just do this. Value, like that. Speed, how fast we want it to go, we'll say 0.25. I don't know, off the top of my head. And the range, the minimum starts at 0 and goes, we'll say 10 blocks away, okay? And we will say, instead of repeat, this is how we would do this. While x is not false, right? Because when this easing function is done, it'll return false, right? Which is what it said in the spec sheet in the library as before. So we initialize it with something, so it starts as true, right? And then it's going to be a number, and then when it's done, it'll be false. And once it's done, once it reads false, we'll stop looping. And then basically the rest is the same. We don't have to change it. But in this case, once it's done, I don't want to immediately remove it. I'm just going to say wait. I'm actually going to add a 2-second wait, I'll say, where we wait 1 tick and then adjust the velocity, right? So we're just going to do this so that when it's done, it doesn't immediately plummet to the ground, and then we'll remove it. Just a quick modification. And so we're taking that easing function, just like before, and we're going to run the task. Motherfucker. Invalid name value. That's right. What's it called? Loop index? It's not called value in the while loop. Let's try this. Are we waiting in between? We should wait 1 tick and then go again. Doesn't look like it's moving. It might not be moving far. Oh, you know what? It might just be moving really slowly. So let's pass 1. Oh, no, that's not the problem. I don't want it to throw errors that I keep reading and thinking are something, but it's not anything, right? This is just saying you can't add false, which is fine. We expected it to do that, but now I just have to say, oh, don't keep going if it goes false. But here's my question. Bruh, the fuck? It looks like it looped like 2 times. Am I crazy? Am I insane? It started at 0, and then the next tick, we got 0 again, and then 0, and then false. Haha. What? Why? You're not done. Sorry. Unless the difference between 3 and 4 instantly... The fuck is going on? If progress is less than 1, then keep get the result. Progress. Oh. Fuck. I forgot how this works. You can't just put loop index in, because like I had said in the thing that I read, I wrote it and I read it and I still fucked up. Oh, no, I didn't write it anywhere. Input goes, I'm just gonna throw it right here. Input goes from 0 to 1. What is happening right now? so confused. Oh, that's my old shit. And I don't know why. I know why it stops at 4 though. Because 4 times 0.25 equals 1, and 1 is done. But why is it always 0? Is it the range thing? Is it the range min-max? Because I don't normally use that. Am I fucking this up somehow? If range.min is decimal, and range.max is decimal. There is also, I'm just now finding out, and I guess I also figured this out somehow, that there's already an is numeric, right? That's how you figure out if something is a number, is dot is decimal. So that procedure function doesn't even fucking matter, whatever. My whole life is a lie! In the arms of the angel, fly. But I am genuinely confused. Am I fucking this up where this is the input and this is the output? Bro! Why? Oh, that's just looping forever now. It just gives me 0 every time, and I don't know why it's doing that. Type dot to lowercase dot context direction to lowercase sine in proc n context progress, where n is a clamped value between 0 and 1. But we don't even need to do that. Oh, I guess we do. We're just multiplying. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Direction and dt. But dt is just not... Oh, because I changed... Holy shit, guys. Guys, I just figured out what it was. Remember earlier in the video where I thought it was kind of weird that I put the... Did I use n anywhere else? You guys remember earlier in the video where I said it was kind of weird that I put the input before and not after?
For whatever reason, I put input first and then min, then max. Normally input's the last value. I don't know. Anyways, that was bizarre.
That's because I directly copied all of this from a different library that I had made. And for whatever reason, I just did it in that order there as well and never bothered fixing it. And so I just fixed it now, which means it broke the clamp function the one time I use it internally. And so that's why none of this was working, because I just can't help but fucking change things. I guess, whatever. So now when we run it, oh my god, I'm getting jebaited right now. I'm actually getting fucked with. I have to be getting fucked with. That fixed it. I know that fixed it. Oh, whoops. There we go. Wow. Wow. That was so much effort. Guys, I did it. Look. Right? So that's the sine in function. Or if I were to change this is how easy it's supposed to be, by the way. Sine in, now I can just do sine out. Boom. Now I have a different easing function. I reload it and rerun it. You can see it starts fast and goes slow. The other one starts slow and goes fast, although it's not immediately obvious, you know, at the end, because then it just kind of stops moving altogether. Or I could do in, out, etc., etc., etc. It's literally just all of these easing functions moved into the game. Find nearest NPC by name. Does exactly what you think it would do. If we were to narrate find nearest NPC by name and pass in a name of an NPC who is here, David for example, I have to pass in a location? Oh, because it's the nearest to something. Fuck, I'm stupid. Right? The nearest David to me, which is that one. Right? And so the idea is if I had 2 Davids for whatever reason, and I stood next to this one. I want this David, not that David, but this David. And I don't know the ID numbers. Well, now I can use find nearest David to my location. And then it gives me N10, which is the one we just spawned in. You can see it right there. So, yeah, that's what that function does. There's player UUID by name and player object by name. There's kind of something that already exists that does this, kind of, but the way Monkey implemented it, it actually doesn't. It will return things that are close to what you type. So if I typed MCM, right, it would return McMonkey, which is fine in some cases, but in some cases you very specifically want the player with the name you're searching for, right? And also there's like some error checking and stuff, right? But it's also very easy to remember, player obj by name, and then I can just do context and do, for example, Celeste. Just kidding. Oh, that's not a command, and it gives me her object, right? Like the Denizen object that I could then do something with, because she has been on the server, but somebody who has not been on the server is McMonkey, for example. Deep get and deep set. So this one is a little bit weird, but the way that it works is we have something in Denizen called a map. And a map is kind of like an object in other languages, map with as, like this, where you can have a key name and it will return a value, right? And that's what it looks like all parsed out. And so if I were to get A, right, it will return Bob, right? Because the value of A is Bob. So the way that deep get works is if instead of Bob, there was another map with B as, and then another map with C as deep value, right? If you don't know what these are, right, it could be kind of difficult to retrieve, or let me rephrase. If you don't know how deep the map is, it would be difficult to procedurally find that value, right? There are ways to sort of like go around that, obviously, because I made it into a procedure script, but I just found that, like, if you don't know how deep the thing is, it could be difficult to access. So I created something to help with that, help with the not knowing, by creating, oh shit, I shouldn't have fucking erased that. Damn it. You basically pass in the map and then the object notation of the thing that you're trying to access. So in this case, we want A, B, C to get this deep value, which is just notated A.B.C, right? And then I passed in A.B.C, and it went through all the layers of the map and got me deep value. And we also have deep set, which works similarly-ish, where if I have A.B.C, right, I can actually set a value there as well. So I could do something like new value, and it will return the map, the one that we just had, but, you know, we've actually changed that deep value. So I could also, if I wanted to, I could just instead make this a new one, right? With, whoops, I don't know how to spell, with D as even deeper. That's getting a little messy to look at in Minecraft chat, but there you go. And then if you can read this, we go A, B, C, D, even deeper, which was what it was supposed to be. Great. Cool. So the next one, some more tech stuff. We've just got, hopefully getting away a little bit from things that are kind of complicated. We've got one called instances of character, where basically you take a string like the brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Oh, damn it, I can't click. That's annoying. So, throw a quote because it's got spaces. The brown fox jumps over the lazy dog is our search, the thing that we're searching through, and we're looking for instances of the letter O. And it returns 8. And as you see, there is 1, 2, 3, and I'm assuming 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, cool. So now we know that there are 5 O's in that word. Has permission is something that very specifically works with something that I created. And so it like kind of doesn't really, it's not super useful. Except for very specifically when you're like using my utilities, but you can basically say has permission, and then type in the permission name, which uses the same dot notation as it's player and then permission. So I would do something like this, and don't ever do notation this way, by the way. Very wrong. I'm just being really lazy, right? Player notation like that, and then I would say the permission I'm looking for is utilities dot, in this case, star, because I think that's the only one I have. Oh, false, because it is checking the wrong fucking, fuck, hold on. Okay. Hopefully that works now that I've eliminated. Okay, so that didn't parse correctly, probably because I spelled permissions wrong. Let's try this again. Proc has permissions. I'm gonna just copy paste this sucker. Has permission. Ah, see, I did. Has permission. True. And now it's using my actual UUID, so, right. I created basically a Denizen only permission system, so that way if you wanted a really light permission system, you could do that purely through Denizen. You don't have to download any like extra plugins. It's a little bit, I want to say, heavy, but as long as you're not like constantly checking, it should be okay. The next one we have, nothing particularly interesting, but we've got lowest index, which basically is just returning the lowest value in a list, but the index of that value, right? So if I have 1, 5, 4, 7, 9, -4, 8, 2, it's going to give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to give me index number 5. False. Why? Why, though? I am dying to know what part of that fucked up. Because the only reason it would ever fuck up is if one of those numbers was basically infinity. It's not complicated. It just loops through the numbers in the list. Ah! Okay. Oh, I'm actually using is numeric here, which is funny. I don't know why. Why am I not using is decimal? I guess I just wrote this earlier or later or whatever. Value 7, the lowest number is 1. Right? And then lowest number is 4. Great. And then is -4 is numeric returns false. Why though? Bruh. So, there we go. Index 5, which is the index of the number that is the lowest value, right? Instead of the tag that I know exists that just gives you the value of the lowest number. And we also have one for highest index as well, which does the same thing. 9 is the number that is the biggest, so we get the index of that, which is 4. and then we can do whatever we need to do with it. Also, honestly, I'm having a lot of fun with this, because this has taken almost 2.5 hours now, and the only reason is because as I'm going through some of these functions, I'm finding bugs, or I'm creating bugs, hilariously. And so, or I'm finding that, like, tags already exist, like, is decimal, because some of these I wrote so long ago, and then have not looked at them until recently. Oh, God, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Okay, so, the next one that we have, random by weight. So, the way that random by weight works is you have to pass a very specific type of map to it. I mean, it's basically just a map, but what you're doing is you're passing in values as keys, right? So in this case, let's say I have apple, orange, and banana. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. B-A-N-A-N-A-N-A-S. Banana, okay. So, and you know, also probably run the correct procedure function. That would help. It's called random by weight. And the idea is you can get a value from your map randomly, but those choices can be weighted, right? And they can be weighted arbitrarily. So if you wanted everything to be equal, right, you would say with apple as 1, with orange as 1, and with banana as 1. And the idea is that apple, orange, and banana all have the same weight to them. They all have the same chance of being picked. And so then I would just get orange, apple, apple, banana, apple, banana. They all have the same chance. But what if I wanted apple to appear twice as often as orange and banana? I would change the value of apple to 2. Apple, 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 orange, banana, apple, apple, banana, banana, apple, 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 apple. Trust me, I did some tests because this is one of the ones that I actually put like a lot of work into. And from what I can tell, the way that I wrote it, I couldn't find an algorithm anywhere that did this, by the way. The way that I wrote it, it does seem to give you roughly those weights of everything, right? So I think that it, like, if we were to run this enough and to take a sample of it, apple would appear twice as often, or should appear as many times as orange and banana combined, right? If we were to run this 1,000 times, there would be roughly 500 apples, 250 oranges, 250 bananas. This is a really cool procedure function, might I add. I didn't pull this from any other library, which is funny. I actually now want to backport this. Backport? I don't know. I want to port this to my other libraries in like actual languages, because this is really cool. And I'm not even 100% sure, you know, that I can, because it uses some Denizen functions, like Denizen tags that are, you know, unique to Denizen. So we'll see. But I thought it was very cool. The next one that we have is random uppercase. We'll do, you don't know how to program in Denizen. Denizen. Like that. Oops, end quotes. This is basically that like SpongeBob meme. You don't know how to program in Denizen. Although it's kind of janky, I think I actually want to change it so that it doesn't have so many like big gaps. But yeah, it was a really quick thing that I just like slammed out. And the last one is flipped case. And then if we were to run flipped case, everything's uppercase. Exactly how it's not supposed to be. There we go. Again, using a procedure function that doesn't need to exist. Wait, that's not even a procedure function. No wonder it fucking failed. I just assumed it was. never mind. Whatever, I fixed it. You get the idea. If it was uppercase, it becomes lower. If it was lower, it becomes upper. Great. Moving on. So, this is the first task script versus an actual procedure script. And as such, we run them. So, we're going to create one called spawn falling block, which maybe not the best name because it doesn't just spawn a falling block, but it actually spawns a falling block with a armor stand and a shulker attached to it. And so if we were to pass in a location, so in this case we'll do player.location, location.forward3, and a material, so we'll say diamond block, like a material name, not an actual material, and then just do that. And there you can see, we now have it, and it's basically a block that is, while it starts out, well, actually, in this case, I don't think it does start out aligned. Never mind. Haha, I am a liar. But it's a block, right? Like, it looks like a block, and you can interact with it, but it's not aligned with the Minecraft grid. And really, roughly speaking, it is an armor stand, in vulnerable armor stand, although in creative, I think I might be able to break it. Right? I thought I could do that. Maybe not. It's an invulnerable, invisible armor stand, as well as a invisible shulker and a falling sand entity. And they're all parented together, right? And the reason why it's like kind of like that is the shulker makes it so that the falling sand entity has collision. And in fact, like, it has like legit collision. You can try, like, you can do like shift walking and stuff on it, right? Which is really cool because you can have this stuff misaligned. You could like create stairs, all sorts of fun things, right? But you can't move the sand or the shulker. It will kind of spaz out if you do that. So you need something unattached to the grid to move it, right? Because both of those, if given the option, want to be attached to the Minecraft block grid. So you have to give it something, attach it to something that doesn't give a shit. And in this case, I'm using an armor stand. I guess technically you could use chickens with no AI on them. Like there are options, but armor stand is like how it's traditionally done in like vanilla, and this is technically an idea taken from vanilla, but it was brought into Denizen. And so the cool thing is now you can just do spawn in and then spawn it at a location and a block. You could spawn a whole bunch of them. You could make like a whole structure, and then you could take that structure and move the whole structure like simultaneously. So the cool thing is, to move the block, all you would do is you do save and save it as, you know, diamond block. Like that. Whoops. It just spawned in the same location. You do something like diamond block, like that. And then you would, I think I did it in the YouTube task, but as you can see, you just say save test block, and then you do created queue determination first. And when you do all of that, it'll give you the list of blocks. It'll give you, in order, it will give you the armor stand, and then the shulker, and then the falling sand entity, I believe, in that order. And so you just take the first one, which is the armor stand, and that's your controller. And then when you're done with them, you just remove blocks and they'll all disappear. Which it's very nice and clean and wrapped up in a nice neat package, which I really like. So that is spawn falling sand. And the other one is clear bad mobs. Now it's kind of interesting, and I was thinking about rewriting it, and I haven't done it, and maybe I still want to, I don't know. Originally I was killing everyone that wasn't a player, but that wasn't great, because then I was killing chickens and things like that. And I could have gone through and selectively like added things to the filter, but the problem was I was actually using the vanilla kill command. So now what I've decided to do is I just make it so that kill, did I copy paste this? Clear bad mobs. All I'm doing is I'm briefly setting the game mode to peaceful for like half a second. Not even that, for 2 ticks basically. And the neat thing about it is that basically any mob that would be considered a hostile mob, you know, and like zombies and stuff like that will disappear, but other things won't, right? So like shulkers won't disappear, NPCs won't disappear, you're not going to lose like your horses or anything like that, which is good because if I were to add things to a list, I would probably want to put shulkers onto it because, you know, shulkers do try to kill you. But the nice thing is, you know, the way that it works right now, it's not going to remove shulkers, which means you're not going to accidentally like, oops, I've destroyed my moving parkour course while I was trying to get rid of the zombies and stuff. So anyways, moving on, we have all of the commands. Real quick, I'm just gonna stay on this screen for a bit so we can see that I'm using the notation that Monkey uses for Denizen just as a way to say how the argument should work. But we have, for our first command, simple permissions. Simple permissions, or perm, basically is a command that you run like this, and then you can do 3 things with it, right? You put in the player name, and then the name of the permission that you want to give them. So I want to give me enjoys diamond. No, that's a weird permission. How about the diamond permission? Is that how you spell diamond? Diamond permission, right? Oh, sorry, I did that in the wrong order. Sorry, permission diamond to jump splat 120. But since I'm jump splat 120, I actually don't need to do that. I can just do permission diamond. But if I wanted to give it to somebody else, I could do that. As long as you're OP, any of the permission commands will work. Then, if I wanted to view my permissions, I would just go perm view. And now I can see I have diamond, and I also have utilities. And I can also view someone else's permissions. And lastly, if I want to, I can clear permissions. And this just clears all of the person's permissions. It's just a blanket thing. I was thinking about making it so that you could remove specific, and I was like, forget it. I don't want to. Because technically there is a way to do that where, so you can see I have diamond, right? If I were to do perm diamond dot shovel, right? And diamond dot hoe and diamond dot axe. And then I wanted to get rid of shovel, hoe, and axe and just do sword, right? I could actually, here, I'll show you real quick. So I have diamond, shovel, hoe, and axe, but then if I wanted to get rid of those, I could just do diamond like this. And now I only have diamond again. And then I could do diamond dot sword. And there we go. Now I only have sword. I got rid of the other ones because if you give yourself a higher level permission, it overwrites lower level permissions. And then as you can see under utilities, I actually have star notation as well. So if you have a star notation, everything under that tree counts. So in this case, diamond dot star is the same thing as diamond dot shovel, diamond dot hoe dot axe. If I had dot shovel dot enchanted, that would also count. Star counts for everything below the tree. And this is why I created deep get and deep set, was specifically for this. And so all the rest of the commands that I have actually use the permission system, and so they all use perm utilities, and so I just have utilities.star so that we can, you know, I can have all the permissions. Panic button, this one's great. So the panic button is /A. Heals you to full health, heals your hunger to full, sets the time to morning, kills all the mobs in the area, and maybe sets you to creative as well. No, it doesn't do that. I thought it might. But yeah, that's a great one. And it's /A or AA or AA, like that. So the idea is like, right? And then however many A's. I used to have like a fuck ton of A's, but nobody realistically is going to hold their finger down on the A button that long. It's probably just going to be 1, 2, or 3 A's. So, the next one is remove all flags. This is a great debug tool. And the way that it works is you do remove flags. And I don't think you pass anything, do you? You can, right, my mistake. Great. kill flags now works with other people correctly. I removed the flags from the Creeper 35. And if you don't run it with anything, you would remove flags from yourself. Why does it say player? That's so annoying. Okay. No flags to remove from Jump 120. Also, if I did have flags, like this, flag. So I gave one flag to me called test flag 1, and I gave a flag to the server called test flag 2. And so if I were to do kill flags with nothing, it's going to only remove test flag 1. And if I were to pass my name, it would also remove test flag 1. Right? Because I'm passing players. If I were to do server, it would remove test flag 2. And if I were to do kill flags all, it removes flags from the server and from me. So nice, easy way to clean up flags, but it's very blanket, right? This is stuff that you use on a test server, right? Because you really don't want to be on a production server and just clear all flags from a single person. That could really fuck them over. But if you're just sort of like testing something and then you keep having to like, instead of having to keep going, flag, player, UUID, name of the flag, 1, you know, like this, to remove every single flag, and maybe you have like 5 of them and you keep getting 5 every time. Like, it's just, that's fine, but you know, I found that like after like doing that 6 times, I was like, all right, I need to find a better fucking way to do this. And in the same vein, we also have kill notables. And so you can also do it without spaces. But kill notables, basically, you, if I remember correctly, luckily all of my commands have helps. So in this case, this would be help, kill notables, remove all the notables. We want location, cuboid, ellipsoid, inventory, or all. Those are backwards. Ha 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 ha. So we do kill notables, and then we would do the specific notable type that we want to get rid of, right? So if we wanted to get rid of just all notable locations, we just do kill notables location. It removes just that. But if we want to do all of them, we can kill all notables. And as you can see, I had some weird janky notables. So, oh, Ellipsoid doesn't have note name. They just added it recently. I just remembered that. I remember seeing it in the patch logs, and I haven't updated Denizen yet. But that's only a bug for this particular version of like dev version that I have. But like if you are fully updated, it would have the actual names of the ellipsoids. And so you can remove them all. Again, it's that same thing where like if you're on a production server, you probably don't want to be removing all notables across the world. But if you are someone like me who's like testing a lot of things, and you're like, man, I'm like just running into, like, I'm just want to get rid of it and start with a clean slate. This is just a nice way to do that. Then instead of having to remove them individually one by one. We have, the next command that we have is puppet MC, NPC. And so generally the way this would work is if I was in spectator, right? I would fly next to an NPC and I would say puppet, and I would puppet the closest NPC. Or if I was, say I was here, I can actually specify which NPC I want to puppet by name. So I could do David, right? And this would find the closest NPC by name. Now you understand why that procedure function exists. I do David, and as you can see, I'm now this one. And it basically just, I do need to change that. Do I need to change that? I probably should. But what it does is it changes your name, it changes your skin. You're basically that person. Also, it's supposed to clear your inventory and I think give you his, but maybe I didn't do that or I got lazy. I can't remember. Bye, bitch. So the idea is you would, go around, do whatever, right? This is for like sort of RPGS stuff. You could like literally fly next to an NPC, puppet them, talk as them. Hi, hi, I'm David, you get it? And then when you were done, /puppet, and then they're left behind, and you can spectator away. Now, it did look like it kind of glitched in and out there for a second. That's because you are specifically respawning all the NPCs. Or, you're respawning, I think, if I remember correctly. I talked to McMonkey about it, and I also did some testing, but basically it's only a problem from your perspective. Other people won't see a flicker. They just would just stop moving. And sometimes I've noticed that like the location doesn't take, and so that their head is maybe facing the right direction, but their body is rotated weirdly. That can be a problem. But yeah, so that's the puppet command. Pretty fun. I really like that one. And lastly is the end tool command. So this is a notable tool. Oh no. Okay, so hopefully I fixed all the is numeric problems. I just encountered one. But basically, our next one is rand placer. And rand placer is very cool. If I remember off the top of my head, I think the way that rand placer works is you have your random placer block, right? And you basically give it values by typing rand placer iron block 5 to, I'm gonna say 1 because it's a weight. Yes. I'm like, it's just a syntax thing. I couldn't remember, right? But the way that it works is now I have a list, and in that list is an iron block with a weight of 1, and I could also do grass with a weight of 2, and I could do dirt with a weight of 2, and I could do gravel with a weight of 2. And now, whenever I right-click with rand placer, grass, dirt, and gravel should all appear twice as likely as iron does. But since there's, 3 of these and 1 of these, this will probably appear, I think, 6 times less frequency or something. I don't know how the math works. Whoa, interesting. Kind of bugged out there for a second. Because one of those doesn't work. One of those isn't a value. Is it called grass block? Well, nice. Luckily, we can just clear. And I'm going to test something. Grass block. It is called grass block. I need to do some error checking so that way it doesn't allow you to... I checked. I did add some error checking. I checked to see if it was something that existed, because if I were to say blah 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 4, can't find a block called blah blah blah. But oh, there is grass right here. Never mind. No, it is working. I'm zoning it out. There is actually grass right here. That's funny. But again, I did want to do grass blocks in this particular instance. Grass block to dirt to gravel to, we'll say iron ore, which makes more sense, to, not to, 1. There we go. So we've fixed the list. And then, oops, as you can see, we're just going to place everything down. Where's my gravel, dude? There's some. And this is great for building paths. This is great for building, like, the side of a building where you don't want it to all be the same material, right? Yeah, it's great. And it also does stairs and things that have a face to them, right? So if we were to do clear... I don't think there's a view, is there? There isn't. We were to clear this, and I were to do rand placer oak stairs... it actually will place things facing directly, right? Or I guess, yeah, no, I'm like, wait, is that right? Is that backwards? Yeah, that's how stairs place. Which is great because, now if you throw that into your list, like some cobblestone stairs for like a broken path, which I know is a common thing, you can like actually face the direction you want and make sure that your stairs are oriented correctly and stuff like that. I'm sure that you're like, yeah, obviously, how else would it work? But I didn't have that originally, so I was kind of, everything was facing the same way, and it didn't dawn on me until, like, kind of later. But yeah, so that's thing. And then you can just toss it on the floor when you're done. And the last one is Notable Tool. Oh, no. The last one we have is End Tool, which we saw all the way at the very, very beginning. But it basically spawns in a stick called the Notable Tool. And we have selection types, right? So as you just saw, it was selection type location. But if I shift right click, now it's cuboid. Shift right click, now we've got ellipsoid. And we've got rainbow text to really just spruce things up. But we're going to start with location. And basically, we right click and then we now have that location selected. And if we were to right click a couple more times, we can move the location. So it shows you down here where it is, right? Negative 2370, negative 170, 176. And then it has this effect so that you get a sense of where it is. There are some tags that exist that allow you to do stuff like cuboids and location blocks and stuff like that. However, I was not really a fan of the outlines of a lot of them. So a lot of the outline particle effects you can see here are custom. So if we were to right click here, you get like a pretty clear sense of, you know, what block is being highlighted, right? And then once we like it, we can just say End Tool, save, and then save it as whatever we want. So we would call this location test. Location test was saved. And then if we were to narrate location test, it's negative 20, 68, negative 173. Oh shit, that's right, that doesn't, here, XYZ. Negative 20, 68, 173, right? So now we've been able to mark that very easily with a tool. Monkey actually has, and there's other ones too, hold on. Monkey actually has a notable tool like this, but I believe, if I remember correctly, his is separate. He has a cuboid tool and an ellipse tool that are two separate things, and I've just combined them into one, as well as a location selector. Also, my particles are different. Because he uses the tag. There's a tag for locations in Denizen, but the tag of a block, if I remember correctly, simply selects the right topmost corner of a block as the location for the block. Which means if you were to select a wall face, right? Instead of having an outline of that wall, all of the particle effects would be flat. It would be like a one-dimensional line of particle effects, or I guess two-dimensional line, instead of a three-dimensional representation of what the cuboid is. And so my particle effects don't specifically, they're not really useful for actually getting the locations. And those were the three procedure scripts I skipped over in my code was outline location, outline cuboid, and shell ellipsoid. But here we go, we're gonna right click. Oh, and mine has it so that if you aren't right clicking on a block, it'll just go 5 blocks out, which is like, or 4.5 blocks or something like that, which is roughly the distance, or it's equal to the distance that you would be able to mine or interact with a block normally, right? So if I was in creative, if I was in survival, it would be 4.5 blocks. In creative, it's 5 blocks. But right now I can select this, and if I were to do it in the air, instead of it falling apart or selecting something way over there, it just selects directly in front of me. So there's no particle effects until the cuboid's actually been formed, which makes sense. You can't highlight something that doesn't exist. But as we can see, we've got the central location of the cuboid, and then we can select not the central location. Sorry, that's not how cuboids work. I've been working with ellipsoids recently, so I'm got them all mixed up. We've got one corner and then the other corner, and the other corner is the corner that we can keep moving, right? So we can, the first corner is just stuck there forever, and we can just keep moving the other corner until we get it to line up the way that we want it to. And I think there's a bit of a bug because every time I redo the particle effects, I'm now getting like 7 copies of the particle effects all being played. I've been trying to squash that bug for a while, but I keep reintroducing it somehow. Anyways, so once we have our cuboid selected, right, we would then just do, again, same as before, end tool, and then the name of the cuboid. But if we are like, oh fuck, this isn't right, we can just do M tool cuboid cleared and be like, I actually wanted to select over here. And there we go. Now we've got it selected the way we wanted it. End tool pillar. No, sorry. Save pillar. Right. And then the last one is the ellipsoid, which is not done yet. But it would function the same as the others. Right click for the center point, and then right click for the X radius, which is this way, Y radius up there, and Z radius, which is that way. And as you can see, it's not working. But the way that it works basically is it is when you right click for the X, Y, and Z, it's just literally going, how many X away is it from that central point, right? So if I were to, hold on, and tool clear. If I were to be selecting an ellipsoid, right? And this is my center point, and then I want to go select my X, right? Even though this isn't in line with my X, I can still do that because it's just saying, you know, it's ignoring the Y and the Z, and it's just saying X compared to X, how many blocks away is that? And it's 1 because X actually goes this way, I just realized. So here, let me just, whoops. Okay, that's one way to do that, I guess. So right click there, X over here, but I could also select X over, whoops, X over here, and it'll just say 8, and it's not 8 diagonally, it's just 8 this way. It's as though this block I'm selecting is right here. And then we could do Y, and then Z, and now we have our ellipsoid. But if we wanted to change, say we're like, oh, that's too far X, we could just right click there, now X is that, and then we would redo Y, and then redo Z, and then, so it cycles around basically. Each new click changes, you know, changes the X, then changes the Y, then changes the Z, then back to X, then Y, then Z, over and over and over. I've been working on a function to try to get an ellipsoid shell outlined the way that I want it to, because the, oh no, uh-oh. Okay, something broke. Like I said, I'm still working on that shell stuff, and it's not really perfect. If I were to use the Denizen.shell tag, it doesn't come out. It comes out again, like it's actual locations for blocks. It's not like a really nice looking ellipsoid, which is what I want. So, but yeah, that is all the utility functions I have been making over the last month or so. This video I'm gonna try to trim this video down. It's over 3 hours I've been recording. My mouth is very dry. I am hungry. I'm tired. But I hope I can sort of smush all that together in maybe like a quick 30-minute video for you guys, so you get a sort of a sense of everything. It's not even being posted on like the Denizen forums like I usually do, because this isn't like, usually I make a video in conjunction with posting on the forums, right? But that's not what this is. In this particular case, I'm just showing you guys what I've been doing for the last you know, month. That and moving, but I can't really show you the process of moving. I can show you the new place, but I'm not gonna do that. But anyways, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any ideas on procedure scripts, you have like crazy algorithms or shit you want me to implement, you know, just let me know in the comments. I love like implementing sort of stuff like that and then finding a use for it in a project down the line. Basically, it's like I don't always know what I want to make, but when I know what tools I have, it sort of defines the boundaries of what's possible, and I like expanding that. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you later, YouTube.